I'm Dave Cummings. I'm the Director of Technology Services here in the county for another 30 days. So this will be my last budget presentation for the Technology Services Department. Our mission with Technology Services is to provide high-quality, innovative, and cost-effective technology to the public, the BCC, and county staff so that they can provide and receive county services. Could I have the first slide up there, please? There we go. I want to highlight some of the major accomplishments that we have this year. Let me get a little closer. It's hard to speak through the mask. The biggest one for us is county telecommuting. Once COVID hit, we just all of a sudden had to provide remote access for everybody and an avenue for them to still be able to do their job. And I believe the Technology Services Department has really stepped up and really kept things going during the pandemic and provided great services so everybody could do their job. The same during the firestorm and the ice storm. Our staff really stepped up, kept things going, didn't have to evacuate the data centers, luckily, so that worked out really well. They came in, they sat in the buildings over here, even while the HVAC was sucking the smoke into the building. They continued to do their job and continued to keep operations up and going for the county. The ice storm was interesting. Ice storm hit. We have a data center in the DSB building, in the TS1 building. And we had a major power outage. The generators kicked on. Unfortunately, the generators at TS1 were outside. They froze up. So facilities very quickly came over and got things going again for us. We, at the time, were moving services from one data center to the other so that we can continue to operate. And then, lo and behold, the ice brought down a big tree and mashed our HVAC system over there and went down again, so we had to move things back over. But during that whole process, TS staff really stood up and made things happen and kept things running for the county. Big area, we're getting into Microsoft 365 phase. We're going into a hybrid cloud and data center operating environment. That's a big project for us. A CBX business plan, which is finally complete, and we'll be coming to the board with that here very soon. A big partnership with SandyNet and some projects as they're being the ISP for the Clackamas Broadband Exchange. We hired a business analyst, which was something we wanted to do through the MFR process to better connect and relate to the departments and how they operate and how we can better serve them and keep projects going. We have a total network refresh that we've been doing over the last couple of years. We're just finishing it up, replacing all the old network equipment. And this will also make us CJIS compliant throughout the county. Brought in Power DMS for policies and developing the TS policy manual. The big issue, security. Created a CISO position and dealt with all the different firewalls and different things we had to do to keep spam out and keep hackers out of the county. And that's been very successful. And then finally, messaging for the capture of messaging that we do in the county. And we're implementing what's called MS Teams, and very shortly the use of SMARsh so that we can document that and to be able to capture that data. Could I get the next screen, please? Performance Clackamas. Because of the COVID, I have to admit that we've been a little bit behind in the ice storms and the firestorms and everything else that's been going on, a little bit behind some of our metrics, and we are continuing to manage those metrics and develop them so that they make more sense and we can more accurately track our results and measures. But I think overall we're doing pretty well here. My office of the director, I'm a little bit behind on the strategic plan. Mr. DeVore will pick that up after I'm gone and go ahead and finish that out now that he has a little bit more time to do that. But all in all, our measures look pretty good. Business applications and county applications are right around or a little bit less than what we expected. And GIS applications, a little bit more. Telecommunications, where they're saving money compared to if we had to go to an outside vendor for cell phones and other services. We've been able to beat the prices and save this year about $343,000. Network connected devices, more than we thought we'd have because that's because of COVID related. And number of PCs, the cost of PCs are going down. Was 2,300, it's down to 2,000, and next year, this next year, we hope to have it down to $1,849 per PC. And then, of course, call center requests were extremely high this last year. We anticipated about 11,000. We got almost 17,000, and we're hoping that'll come down for this next year. Can I grab that next slide, please? And this is an interesting slide. It shows us pretty well getting close to the 100% mark on a lot of the different lines of business. Of course, the Office of the Director is behind. And I kind of explained that earlier. But it's all of this is due to, the big things that we've had happen in the past. I have COVID, fires, ice storm, and we did have an earthquake. And hopefully, if we have anything else, a flood, killer hornets, zombies, and this is a word I just heard today. I've been behind the times. A Sharknado.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So hopefully we won't have all of that, and we can continue on to do better with our metrics and have them be more realistic and can relate to what we're doing. And because they've kind of been on a hold a little bit, and we've been adjusting them, but they're getting a lot better. And I think it's going to be a very good tool for us to use to figure out if we're doing a good job here in the county. You have the next slide, please. I'm going to turn this portion over to Mr. DeVore, and he will go over the revenue expenses and the next part on our budget.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. First, Dave and I would like to thank, while we're getting started here, finance and especially the budget team for all their great help. It's been a pretty wild year for everybody. They've been really outstanding helping us get through all this, so we want to kudos their direction. Quick brief overview, which will help a little bit in our review here. TS obviously is a internal services department, and most of our funding is along that kind of model. When it comes down to it, for the most part, is we have two sources of income or revenue. We have direct bill, and we have variations on allocations. Fortunately, it looks like it's, the revenue pie chart up there is not correct. Apparently that's a different department. But the bottom line is we have two main sources of revenue that we manage. One is, again, the direct billing, which is our electronic services and our CBX, our broadband. They're totally self-sustaining based on they do all their projects and charges and have to have actual business to make money. If there's no business out there, they don't exist. So they're totally self-sustaining, and they end up to, they're about approximately about $4.2 million of our budget. The other part is allocations. We have two primary types of allocation. We have what we call our services allocation, which we've tried to make a very transparent model. The departments have a lot of say in what they get to use and how they use it. We take metrics all through the year and supply reports to the departments that allow them to see what utilization they're looking at, and they can make business decisions of whether or not they want to take on additional business or computer equipment, or do they want to hold back and so forth. And we work with them on a consultation basis to determine what the best direction is for them. So they're able to see that throughout the year and make decisions. That particular part pays for things like network, Microsoft, all the licensing, Microsoft, so forth, our security, our storage, basically to keep the shop running and the staff around that. And that part is just under about $8 million of our budget. The other part is a little bit more confusing. We still take metrics and assign allocations to the departments on uses of other types of technology like GIS, the ERP systems, which is like PeopleSoft and the Workforce, the support for the web and applications, but they actually don't pay for those. Those are then redirected to what they call non-departmental, which, if I understand correctly, is ultimately Fund 100, which is basically general fund that pays for those. But we still show the departments what utilization they have every year of those resources. And that for this last year was just about 3.8 million. The rest is miscellaneous funds that we get through fees or fines or any kind of sales and so forth. But that makes up the majority of our budget. The reason that's kind of important is when you look at how we handle our year-to-year capital replacement and large capital purchases, we have internal reserve funds that we transfer from year to year and we save up. We don't actually come to the county and say, well, we want to buy a new network switch when we need to. We project out the capital replacement of all our equipment and then look at how much every year we need to basically save, so when it's time to purchase that, we're ready to go. So that's built into the year-to-year allocation. And that way we try to keep a flat budget as much as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes we get the great storm where everything hits at the same time and we end up replacing a lot of equipment at the same time, and that causes an artificial up and down on our materials and services and capital expenditures. Bottom line, though, they're still covered under our reserves. So the reason that's kind of important is when we look into the next slide, and this slide here, you'll see where when we transfer planned funding from one year to another as we're saving it up, it gets rolled year to year in beginning fund balance. And you can see where that goes up. And then a year will occur where we pay for a lot of equipment, and that'll come back down again. Unfortunately, year for 19-20 will be a little bit outdated, but 19-20 was a year where with COVID hitting, a lot of planned procurement stopped. It got rolled into the next year. So we had a very large increase in our fund balance and capitals, which meant that our amended budget went way up, which makes it a little bit difficult to explain what our year-to-year actual budget changes are, because we're comparing amended to adopted, which is a little bit more confusing. So to explain that a little bit, when we get into the numbers here, I'll make sure we also look at what our adopted to adopted is, so you get a better idea of what we're actually changing. The other thing that does, it means that our year-to-year amended is sometimes a little bit skewed, because if we have a large amount of unplanned purchases that did not occur on time, they get rolled into the next year, and that means we have to put into amended, and then again, it's hard to sometimes see where we are. Luckily, finance is coming up with some great ideas that they're working with us on how to remove that from the equation so we can see a much more accurate view of our budget. That being said, on the revenue and expenditures up on the screen, again, our fund balance went up this last year and is going way back down next year, because we just purchased all the backlog of equipment that we needed to do the network, server upgrades, Microsoft upgrades, all the stuff we've been planning for years. We finally got to it this last year, and a lot of it's going to place. As you could also see, jumping down a little bit, our materials and services and capital went way up this year, again reflecting those increases in expenditures. And they start going down again next year, because we're basically starting to build up our reserves again. So we'll be in good shape, but we try to make sure we keep it flat as possible, but then the world happens. Bottom line though, they're covered. They don't cause increases in our allocation. It just makes it hard to look at our budget. So continue on that. Federal, state, local, and other donations has gone way down. We used to get money from the state for our GIS programs. That's pretty much been completed. It was called the ORMAP program. That's done. So that money's pretty much drying up. So we won't be seeing too much of that anymore. Charges, fees, license, and permits. That is all those various allocation models I mentioned rolled into that line. So you can see where it's gone up slightly this last year. And it's going to be about pretty much maintaining the same. It's kind of hard on this page to see what has actually occurred, but the bottom line is we've held our allocation fairly flat this year. The money that we were charging the departments for the infrastructure only went up about 1%, and that was actually due to the fact that we added a charge out of our direct bill into allocation, so we wouldn't have to send a lot of bills to everybody. We moved it into allocation. So reality is our allocation's flat. The other part too is also our non-departmental is pretty much flat. I think it went down like 17,000. So we kept it a very flat year, even though for our revenue, even though a lot was being expended. Revenue from bonds and other debts, that was basically we sell old vans, which is, we don't have anymore, we got rid of them. Other revenue sources, that's like salary reimbursement, interest, and so forth. And that goes up and down a little bit each year, but that's a minor part of the actual revenue. And then we don't have any more interfund transfers, those were state transfers. And those pretty much make up the entire amount of our revenue, which came to this year about 26 million for the projected year end, dropping down to 21 million for our next year. Again, that's because we have an amended budget this year of over 5 million. If we take out the amended budget, which was actually for this year 5.8 million, we end up being just about flat again, which was the goal that we were asked to make, and we were able to actually make that this year. It worked out fairly well. Our expenditures, personnel services, we went from 56 people down to 55. We actually gave up a management position and moved out those responsibilities to the other managers in the department. That saved us some money in our non-departmental charges. Bottom line, everything being equal, we ended up going up about 2.4%, which of course with COLA and new charges, step increases and so forth is not too bad for what we got right now. We're hoping to stay at about 55 people for the next year. Materials and services, it was 10.2 million and dropping down next year to 8.3 million. Again, that's because we dropped almost all our capital expenditures for next year because we did them this year. They're all there. What it does reflect, though, if you look to prior years where we're in the $6 million range and we're still in the $8 million range, a lot of that is we are taking on a large number of new contracts and maintenance contracts. As we bring in new services for the county, especially security is really expensive. It's not something you pay up front, it's something you pay on a subscription basis. Every year they nail you. They get you, they get you, they get you. As we move into a cloud environment, again, it goes based on subscription. It's like paying your cable bill. It just keeps going up. So we are seeing a large increase both in the number and cost to maintain services in the county as we expand. So that's going to be something we're going to have to keep working on each year. The other part is capital outlay. This year we looked at about almost $5 million that we spent. That goes way down next year, down to about 2 million is what we're projecting. Mostly that is building up our reserve again. We won't be actually doing too much capital next year because we got to start planning for the 5 years from now when the servers start giving out. We better have that money ready to go. So we try to keep on top of that. And then that comes up to be the $21 million for our proposed budget for next year, which is balanced to what we're looking at for revenue. The only other part I was going to mention is we've seen this last year For our allocation, our counts that we look at what we're supporting county have gone up drastically. The number of PCs and the number of phones, we've literally doubled the amount of cell phones we support. Our phone count's gone up because people took phones home and are working both in the office and at home. And we've seen the number of PCs go up. As I think COVID starts going away and people start figuring out where they're going to work, we're working with the departments to redo that use of technology, and we're starting to already see the counts come back down again a little bit. So that's good. The other thing we've seen, though, is our rates have gone down. Well, the rates go down partly because of the amount of our metrics is how much is your cost divided by how many units you're supporting. Number of units go up, your rates go down. So you have to really watch, is that actually the reflective of where we're going as far as the budget? It depends on how much the rates go up and down and how much our counts go up and down. So we have to really keep a close eye on, if we start seeing a drop in PCs in the county, does that drive the per PC cost up? You would think, well, great, you're getting rid of technology, but you still have to support the same amount of systems in the county that now get spread across fewer PCs. So we're trying to work with departments on finding out where we can start taking cuts on licensing, on services that don't necessarily are necessary anymore, so we can keep those rates flat and not see them go up. Next slide, please.
All right, well, thank you, Dave. So I have our last slide here, significant policy and financial issues. I noticed some of the other departments in their budget presentations didn't have much in here or nothing at all, and some had a lot. Dave just mentioned we reduced the manager position, and it's not my position. It was another one within the department, which gave us a reduction in general fund appropriation. Several unplanned expenses, as we mentioned before, the Smarsh, Zoom, Adobe, telecommuting equipment, everything that we've had to supply to keep the county going over this last year and a half with all the disasters that we've been having happen to us. Increase in the number of maintenance costs. Maintenance costs have gone extremely high, and they continue to go up, and that's very hard for us to control. And then security and compliance requirements, CJIS compliancy, keeping the ransomware people out of the county, hackers, and all of that stuff has really been expensive for us to be able to provide those services and equipment to stop that. I just wanted to mention, finally, that we have a flat budget this year. I don't believe it's sustainable over the next few years just because of everything going up, but for now we are flat in our budget. And also wanted to mention that this budget process was extremely easy for us to do, very informative for us and being able to manage that. And that's all because of our county administrator, Gary Schmidt, and how he has led us and how he has provided the support and opportunity for us to do these budgets. So, do we have any questions at this time?
We do have comment or question from Commissioner Smith, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I'm glad you were able to upgrade the equipment. You know, your department is one of those departments that you don't get any attention until our emails quit, right? And we always take
Exactly.
that for granted that we have our emails and our cell phones, and you just provide remarkable service. I really do appreciate that. I am concerned that you say, and thank you, Dave, that you don't think that your budget is sustainable because of the future needs of technology as costs go up. We're seeing that across the board in a lot of sectors, especially the private sector, and why wouldn't it happen here? So I think this committee needs to address that budget consideration going forward, or our staff does. You addressed reserve for future expenditures is fine. And Dave DeVore, you mentioned contingency. I didn't quite hear all of, or maybe you did. Could you explain what your contingency is for?
Mm-hmm. We have restricted contingency that is part of our CBX fund specific for replacement of fiber. You will not believe how many squirrels are out there just loving our fiber these days. That's our major hit, along with drunk drivers and so forth. We also have restricted funds in some of our capital replacement in case something happens Some hard drives go out that are not under warranty. We don't have the funding. We have a little bit there specifically to help protect that. The rest of our unrestricted was transferred to Fund 100 this year to be part of that overall redoing of contingency. So that's just for basically capital replacement at CBX.
Right, right. Well, you certainly have some challenges facing you. And as the county wants to, or some commissioners may remain nameless, want to expand our broadband into our rural areas that are underserved, we have some real challenges in this department, and I'm looking forward to learning more about how we're going to deal with that. Thanks a lot. And Dave, we're going to miss you.
I'm going to miss you too.
So are you going fishing or hunting?
All of the above.
That's wonderful, and thank you for your service.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. We have comments waiting in queue, so I think we've got Fisher, Commissioner Fisher, and then Ms. Lee and Mr. Feely.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything and all of the quick maneuvering through the COVID crisis was just astronomical and incredible. So amazing, amazing work. One thing I've been thinking about all this day and a half is keeps coming into my mind of, oh my gosh, the transition now from right now through as we're recovering from COVID is a really big deal. And so I really appreciate that in your significant issues, you have listed that as a significant issue. And I don't know, I'm trying to think in my mind, I'm going to start applying this lens as I review the budget. But will that create increased, I know that some things will go down because there won't be as much, like you had talked about in your budget presentation, but are there, because of the use of technology as we come more back to site-based, but some employees probably, I just think of certain job functions where there's so much is now transitioned to Zoom, and before they may have a cubicle here but can't maybe do their work with background noise or different things when they're on a Zoom. And so we're just in this big change, and I'm just interested to know if that has a budget impact for you and what that looks like, or is it just something that'll be a little bit less money given out here, so you just move it over there? But it's just sort of the practical effects of how do we plan financially for the changes as we recover.
Well, I'm sure Dave and I might have different answers to that, but I think as we transition back into the county, one thing that the last year and a half has proven to us is that we can work remotely and do it very effectively as a group. And I think the county's a good team of people, and they're professionals, and they all have done their jobs very well. Coming back into the county, as what happened when COVID hit, we've never done that before. We weren't sure what to expect or anything. We'll be in the same mode of trying to second guess how things are going to work. I think it might be a little easier for us to support since more people will be back in the county than being remote. The hardest issue is these days that everybody wants 24/7 access no matter where they're at in the world, and we've been able to provide that. And as long as we can continue to keep the hackers out and ransomware people. And I wanted to mention on the ransomware, our encrypted backups are extremely hard for people to come in and take over and then charge us ransomware to get our backups back. We have that totally covered right now, knock on wood. But I think it's a brave new world. It's a new situation coming back in. Will we be totally back into work or a little bit of a hybrid? I think as we go on, Administrator Schmidt will be able to direct us and guide us on how we're going to do that, and we'll do everything we can in technology services to make sure that happens to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
How about you, Dave?
I think it was an excellent demonstration of where we're going to have to be resilient as we move forward. There's opportunities and there's risk. And one thing we have learned from this is we want to continue working with the departments to get a better understanding of where they need to go. We got 20 different type of departments with different challenges, all of them. But all of them, access is the biggest issue, security. And we're going to continue using a hybrid model, not knowing what our resources are. We found out in the ice storm, when you have power, when you don't. You got internet, now you don't. Now you got cell phones, now you don't. Trying to have more than one methodology to try to get to things is a good way to move forward, but it's also a ka-ching factor that we need to balance. And that's where I think working with the county administration as to the priorities and then what the departments need will be an ongoing challenge no matter what happens. I personally think we're going to see more of an issue in security than we're going to see in infrastructure, just because that's where the money is for the people that are going after our data. And so we're going to have to keep on top of that, and that's a challenge. The more you open up for access, the more you open up for vulnerability. It's just that, we're not the only ones, everyone's going through that. So there is both options for savings and options for expenses. Wish I'd give you a more definitive answer, though.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Lee, and then Mr. Feely.
I want to thank you for keeping the system so stable through all these emergencies, and also all the upgrades you're doing for security. That's such a risk these days. But I also wanted to thank you for your cooperation with Sandy. We love our Sandy net, and you've been a great partner. Jeremy Peetzold talks about you at every meeting.
Is it good stuff?
Jeremy's a great guy.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Feely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, good presentation. You guys are always right on top of it. And Dave, congratulations on your retirement. I'm going on 12 years. I do not regret it. I have not regretted it once. Enjoy every day. You'll love it.
All right.
I just wanted to kind of echo what Sonia was talking about, the changing work environment. I mean, I think the work environment in this country and possibly others can change forever because of COVID. My son works for a traditional East Coast-based corporation that did not allow telecommuting before the pandemic, and he has telecommuted from his garden shed in Stafford to New Jersey for the last year and a half.
Oh, my.
And he actually just got promoted, and that's something that they never would have allowed an employee not to be at the headquarters in New Jersey if they were at that level. So it's just, I mean, that's just my little version of it, but I keep hearing from other people about how, you know, the world is changing and office buildings are not going to be full again. So, I mean, that's going to affect you guys. And I think security in particular, as you get more distributed use. And then my other question is really for the budget staff, and I'm just going to use your budget as an example. But on page 7, the yellow column, general fund support, one of my areas of interest all along, and Elizabeth and I talked to this shortly after she arrived here, was like, how do I identify the general fund dollars once they leave a general fund department? You know, so I'm assuming that some of your cost allocations are coming from general fund departments, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so, but it doesn't show in your budget as general fund. And it's not like you're doing it wrong, you're doing it right, but it's just, it gets hidden at some point. We lose track of that.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. So that's one of our projects that is now going to be possible with our new chart of accounts.
Oh, cool.
Yes, we'll follow that general fund revenue.
Yeah,
We really want to.
follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you pointed this out, because in the past, this slide has actually shown general fund, and what that general fund amounts, what they were, is what the non-D overarching Clackamas County's
Right.
contribution. But we were looking at the presentation versus, you know, support general fund or charges for service. And so we pulled them off of this particular page because they are charges for service for the county. Next year, you're going to see an even more improved presentation.
Okay, that'd be great.
Because we're going to show all out of the general fund everywhere that those dollars go throughout the county.
Right.
So tracking and following the
Yeah.
general fund.
And CCOM's another good example. I mean, they get
Exactly.
a huge amount from the sheriff's office, but it doesn't show up to them as general fund, but that's the way it comes in the door. Thank you.
Okay, did that take care of your question? Thank you, Mr. Feely. Thank you both for being here, and congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you so much. I've been in technology since I was 16, and I'll be 71 this summer, so it's been a long haul. I've seen a lot of changes over the years.
You could apply for the budget committee.
Well,
I
enjoy.
just might do that.
You can. You're not an employee.
Commissioner Savas does have his hand up.
Before we adjourn this session, we do have, Christina has someone in queue.
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Well,
up.
Paul,
Hello, Dave. Just want to wish you the best, and I hope you're going to put that Westphalia to work in your retirement.
you know, somebody offered me $45,000 for that the other day. I said, are you kidding? They only sold for $5,000 brand new. So, yeah, I think my wife and my daughters would run me out of town if I sold it. But the Firebird and the Camaro are staying with me forever. But Westphalia, yeah, that's a whole different breed of animal.
Wow.
Thank you, Paul.
That's
You're
awesome.
welcome, Dave. And like I said, maybe you can go camping with it somewhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. Although I did buy a new Airstream a couple of years ago, and after 5 days, my wife looks at me and she goes, well, if we were in the Westphalia, we would have gone home by now. And I said, you're absolutely right. It's like being in a resort. So it's going to be fun.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.